My mom screamed at me, "Get out and never come back." Not whispered, not emotional. She meant it. So I did exactly that. I picked up my keys, stepped outside, and drove away from the house my family had lived in for decades, the same house I'd been quietly keeping afloat. I didn't hear from them for weeks. Then my dad called. His voice was shaky, almost polite when he asked why the mortgage hadn't been paid. I didn't yell. I didn't explain. I just gave him one sentence, and the silence that followed told me something I'd never understood before about power, family, and consequences. My name is Jessica. I'm 29, and for most of my life, I was the responsible one, the dependable one, the daughter who didn't cause problems and didn't ask for much. I work as a regional manager in real estate, which sounds impressive, but what it really means is long days, constant pressure, and being paid to solve other people's problems before they explode. I grew up in a quiet suburb outside Phoenix, tree-lined streets, lawns trimmed just enough. From the outside, our family looked fine, stable, the kind of house people slowed down to glance at, especially during the holidays when my mom insisted on decorations that made us look happier than we were. Inside was different. My mom, Linda, cared deeply about appearances, how the house looked, how we looked, how other people saw us. She had a way of talking that sounded loving on the surface, but always left a bruise underneath. Compliments that came with conditions, praise that could be taken back the moment you disappointed her. My dad, Robert, stayed quiet. He worked hard, came home tired, and avoided conflict like it was a disease. When my mom went on one of her rants at the dinner table, he'd stare at his plate and keep chewing as if silence could protect him. It never did. I learned early that peace in our house came from being useful, good grades, no arguments, helping out, saying yes before anyone had to ask. I became the easy child, the one who didn't need attention. My younger sister Emma saw through it faster than I did. She pushed back, rebelled, spent more time outside the house. I stayed and tried to make things work. Even as an adult, that pattern followed me. Sunday dinners, same table, same complaints, same subtle reminders of what I owed them. My mom loved to say things like, "Family takes care of family," usually right before asking for something she'd already decided I should give. After college, I moved into my own apartment in the city. It was small, but it was mine. Quiet, clean, predictable. The first place where I could breathe without feeling watched. I thought distance would fix things. Instead, it just changed the way the pressure came at me. Slower, quieter, wrapped in guilt instead of demands. And I didn't yet realize how deeply entangled I still was financially, emotionally, and in ways that would eventually cost me far more than money. Things really shifted the year my dad lost his job. At first, no one said the word crisis. My mom framed it like a temporary inconvenience. "These things happen," she said, waving it off while scrolling on her phone. "We'll figure it out." But the tension seeped into everything. The house felt tighter, louder somehow, even when no one was talking. Bills started coming up in conversation more often. Not directly, never a clear ask, just comments dropped like crumbs. The utilities went up again. "Groceries are ridiculous lately. Your father hates worrying about money." I started helping where I could, a payment here, covering a bill there. It felt reasonable, temporary. I told myself I was just easing the pressure while my dad got back on his feet. He didn't. Weeks turned into months. My dad sent out applications, then fewer applications. Eventually, he stopped mentioning them at all. He spent more time on the couch, the TV always on the volume low. My mom, meanwhile, acted like she was carrying the weight of the world. She talked constantly about sacrifice, about how exhausted she was, about how ungrateful life had been to her, and still she spent. New clothes appeared in her closet. The kitchen got updated little by little, nothing huge at once, just enough that it didn't feel like a splurge until you added it all up. She'd show things off casually as if daring me to comment. "I deserve something nice," she'd say. After everything. Sunday dinners became unbearable. I'd sit there listening to her complain about money while knowing exactly how much I'd already sent that month. My dad would glance at me sometimes like he wanted to say something, then look away. My friends started noticing too. I'd turn down trips, skip nights out, drive the same old car while everyone else upgraded. Someone joked once, "You make good money. Where does it all go?" I laughed it off, but my chest felt tight. Sarah didn't laugh. She was patient at first, then confused, then frustrated. She watched me stress over numbers that didn't seem to match my job. She watched me rearrange my schedule around my parents' needs. One night, sitting on my couch, she asked quietly, "Are you building your life or holding theirs together?" I didn't have an answer. I just knew that every month more of my energy disappeared. My savings barely moved. My anxiety grew sharper, and somewhere along the way, helping my family stopped feeling like love and started feeling like an obligation I couldn't escape. What I didn't know yet was how much control I'd actually given away, or how ugly things would get once that control slipped. The night everything finally blew up started like every other Sunday. I stopped by the grocery store on the way over even though no one asked me to. Old habit. I picked things my mom liked, things she'd comment on approvingly. When I walked into the house, the first thing I noticed was something new in the living room. Different cushions, a new rug, the kind of quiet upgrade you only notice if you've been there 100 times before. My dad was already at the table, shoulders slumped, scrolling on his phone. He smiled when he saw me, but it didn't reach his eyes. Then I saw my Aunt Brenda. She was my mom's younger sister and everything my mom claimed she wanted to be. Independent, practical, calm. She hugged me tightly and said, "It's so good to see you, Jessica. Your mom tells me you're doing amazing." I felt my mom tense behind me. Dinner was awkward from the start. My mom talked too much. My dad barely spoke. Brenda tried to fill the gaps with small talk, work, travel, normal things families talk about when they're not walking on landmines. Halfway through the meal, Brenda mentioned something she shouldn't have. She laughed lightly and said, "I'm so glad you guys got past that scare a few years ago. The house is still beautiful." The room went quiet. My mom froze. "What scare?" Brenda blinked. "You know, when things were tight after Robert lost his job. You said Jessica helped you sort it out." I felt my stomach drop. My mom slowly turned toward me. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Jessica," she said. "What is she talking about?" I tried to keep my voice steady. "It's not what you think." But it was too late. Something had already cracked. "So you've been telling people we couldn't handle our own lives," she snapped, making us sound helpless. I wasn't. "You went behind our backs," she cut in, her voice rising. "You made decisions about this house without us." I stood up, my hands shaking. "You were weeks away from losing it." I stepped in because no one else would. The color drained from her face, then rushed back all at once. "How dare you," she said. "How dare you embarrass me in my own home?" My dad finally looked up. "Linda, maybe?" "Stay out of it," she said sharply, never taking her eyes off me. "This is between me and my daughter." She stepped closer, her voice low and venomous. "You think because you help financially you get a say? You think this is your house now?" "I never said that." I replied. "I just wanted to help." Her laugh was short and cruel. "Help you think humiliating us is help." Then she said it. Loud, clear, final. "Get out and don't come back." The words hung in the air. Even Brenda gasped. I waited for my dad to say something, anything. He didn't. So I picked up my purse, walked to the door, and left. I didn't slam it. I didn't turn around. That was the moment something in me finally broke. And once it did, I knew I wasn't going to fix things the way I always had. The first thing I felt after that night wasn't anger. It was relief. No more Sunday dinners, no more walking on eggshells, no more bracing myself for my mom's moods. For the first time in years, my apartment felt quiet in a way that didn't hurt. I slept through the night. I woke up without that familiar knot in my chest. And then the 15th of the month came. I was sitting at my kitchen table with a mug of coffee, sunlight cutting across the counter, when my banking app sent the usual notification. The same payment, the one that had gone out every month for years without fail. I stared at it for a long moment. No dramatic music, no racing heart, just clarity. I opened the details, scrolled once, and canceled the recurring transfer. The screen asked me to confirm. I didn't hesitate. When it was done, I closed the app and finished my coffee. That was it. I didn't announce it. I didn't warn anyone. I simply stopped doing what I'd never been thanked for. A week passed, then another. My phone stayed quiet. By the third week, the messages started. First from my dad. Short, careful. "Hey kiddo, Hope you're okay." I didn't respond. A few days later, "We're having some trouble with the online account. Can you help?" Still nothing from me. Then came the call. I let it go to voicemail, but I listened later. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered. "Jessica, the bank reached out. There might be an issue with the payment. Can you call me back?" I didn't. 2 days after that, he showed up at my building. The front desk called up and asked if I was expecting a visitor. They gave his name. My chest tightened, but not the way it used to. I told them to send him up. When I opened the door, my dad looked worn down. His shoulders sagged. His clothes were rumpled. He smelled faintly of old coffee. He tried to smile when he saw me, but it fell apart halfway through. "Thank God," he said. "We've been trying to reach you." I stepped aside and let him in. He sat on my couch and rubbed his hands together like he was cold. "Your mom's been upset," he said. "She didn't mean what she said. You know how she gets when she feels cornered." I stayed standing. "Dad," I said, "why are you really here?" He swallowed. "The mortgage." There it was. He looked up at me, eyes red. "The payment didn't go through. The bank sent notices. We don't understand what happened." I crossed my arms, not defensively, just to keep myself steady. "You do understand," I said. "You just don't like the answer." He shook his head. "You can't just stop, not like this." I finally sat down across from him. "Actually, I can." And I did. Silence filled the room. "Jessica," he said slowly, "your mother is scared." I let out a short breath. She wasn't scared when she told me to get out and never come back. He looked down. She was angry. "She was clear," I replied. He wiped his face. "We're family. We help each other." I nodded. I did. For years. That was when I said it out loud. Not emotionally, not as an accusation, just facts. I told him how long I'd been covering the largest bill tied to the house, how it started as a temporary fix, how it became permanent, how I rearranged my life around payments and emergencies and quiet transfers labeled things like payments and bills, how I skipped trips, put off plans, lived smaller than I needed to. He stared at me like he was hearing a foreign language. "We didn't know," he said weakly. I shook my head. "You knew someone was paying. You just didn't ask who." His eyes filled with tears. "We're going to lose the house." I leaned back. "That's a possibility. You can't let that happen," he said. "Your mother won't survive it." I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not cruelty, finality. "Dad." I said I already lost something. I lost my place in this family the night she kicked me out of a house I was helping keep. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "What do you want us to do?" he asked. For the first time, I said softly, "Figure it out yourselves." He started crying then, not quietly. His shoulders shook. He begged. He promised things would change, that my mom would apologize, that she'd finally appreciate me. I listened. I really did. And then I said the one sentence that ended the conversation. "I'm not paying anymore." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't justify it. I didn't argue. I stood up and opened the door. He walked out slowly like he was carrying something heavy he couldn't set down. After he left, my phone lit up. Message after message. From my mom. Apologies, please, promises. I didn't read them all. I didn't need to. A few days later, I drove past the old house on my way to work. There was a notice taped to the door. My mom stood inside watching the street like she was waiting for a miracle. I didn't stop. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the loud, triumphant kind. The quiet kind that comes when you finally stop saving people who never planned to save themselves. The fallout didn't come all at once. It arrived in pieces. First, the calls stopped. Then the texts slowed down. Apologies turned into questions. Questions turned into silence. I heard through relatives that my parents had to make adjustments. Smaller place, fewer extras, real conversations they'd avoided for years. I didn't feel victorious. I felt lighter. My apartment changed too. Not physically, but emotionally. Mornings were quieter. My coffee tasted better when I wasn't calculating someone else's bills in my head. I started sleeping through the night again. No more jolting awake, heart racing, wondering what crisis was coming next. Sarah noticed before I did. We started talking again, slowly, carefully. She told me I seemed present in a way I hadn't been before. like I was finally standing in my own life instead of hovering on the edges of someone else's. We took walks, cooked dinner, planned small things without guilt attached. Work felt different too. I was still busy, still stressed sometimes, but the stress belonged to me. It had edges. It ended when I closed my laptop. My mom sent messages now and then, short ones, apologies wrapped in regret. I didn't respond, not out of anger, but because answering would pull me back into a conversation I'd already finished. I learned something in those months. Boundaries don't have to be loud to be firm. Walking away doesn't mean you didn't care. And letting people face the consequences of their choices isn't cruelty, it's honesty. For the first time, my money was mine. My time was mine. My peace was mine. And nothing they said after that changed any of it. Some people think family means endless sacrifice. I learned the hard way that real family doesn't survive on guilt control or silence. Walking away didn't make me heartless. It gave me my life back. If this story hit close to home, if you've ever been forced to choose between keeping the peace and keeping yourself, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments. And if you want to hear more real family drama stories like this, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one.